Good morning. All right, well, welcome to the 5th annual Tech Track. It's my 4th time running this, so hopefully we're getting this down for you all and you're enjoying your time this morning. We're going to give you basically a quick update on infrastructure activities in 2017. Some of you will be familiar with these numbers, and maybe some of the numbers will be surprising, but we figure to help set the tone and give maybe a wider perspective of what's going on in the space industry, to at least summarize what's happening and maybe even view or reveal some surprising trends that are going on in the industry right now. We'll see if this works. So I'm John Holst, and I'm the Senior Analyst for the Space Foundation Research and Analysis branch. I work with Becky Yuckman, who actually is over there. She's our data analyst. She has a little doggy, so if ever you want to talk with her or I, we'll be there for you. We do 2 core products, which is the Space Report, a PDF. This is annual snapshot in time of the previous year. That gets published around June, July timeframe, and every day we do daily updates on the Space Report Online, which is our online website with a daily updated database, primarily of infrastructure, but you can see we have all these other products as well, products and services, infrastructure, global space economy, and workforce. So we try to cover those, and we try to make it interesting to our readers and our subscribers. We do also do customized analysis and support, and you can see some of the core customers that sort of lean toward each product. We do this primarily for the Space Foundation for maintaining the pillars of education, space awareness, and also service to the space community. And we would say today this is probably service to space community and space awareness for you all. We'll get into infrastructure. What you're seeing is a peek of just our status boards. It's one of our launch service provider status boards. It's for global. So you can kind of get a snapshot of that. That was taken April 2nd, just because I'm just trying to get it ready. But this is updated every day. You can see we have spacereport.org. That's where we're at. And we'll get into the 2017, which is orbital space launch vehicle activities and trends, as well as spacecraft deployments and trends, and questions worth examining that happened last year. And by the way, I know some people may want to ask questions, and we're going to, because of the VP thing, we're going to kind of cut it short, but I will be available for questions in the back if anyone wants to chat with us. So some folks have seen something similar to this. For 2017, 91 orbital space launch vehicles were launched. You can see the general trend has been upwards. I mean, it's been up and down, but for the past decade, it's generally been up. We're not quite near the record high of 92 in 2014. And you can see we monitor primarily 6 different countries, and then occasionally Israel, Iran, North Korea might launch something, and that's what that other typically is. Getting more into it, this is what happened last year. Well, actually for the past 5 years or so. You can kind of see the different countries and the activities as far as the trends. What's significant here is Russia has gone down in their launch activities, and for the past 2 years it's been the first time in a long time, decades, since they've been under 20 launches per year. Last year was 19, and the year prior was 18. For the United States, you can see activity has shot up to 30. We were kind of just bebopping along around 18 and a half launches annually on average. And then for some reason Japan got a 75% increase in their launch activity. You can see, I mean, their launch tempo isn't much, but for them that's significant. China, India, Europe have kind of maintained an average, each one of them, for the past 5 years. So the gist of it really is the United States last year was very busy with launching things into space. This, we think, tells a bigger story. 443 spacecraft were launched or deployed last year. You can see that's significantly higher than the record launch year of 2014. We count the CubeSats in this number, so anything deployed from the ISS or anything as a ride share on one of the space launch vehicles, we count those. 443, you can see that the United States accounted for 65% of the number of spacecraft deployed. China was next with 8, and Japan with 5. The most common type of spacecraft deployed was Earth observation or remote sensing. You can see it's slightly over half the share. Communications comes in next, and then ship tracking, something like AIS, and that would be on particularly the Spire Lemur 2 CubeSats that we see going up right now. This is a little bit messier. It doesn't really tell a good story other than it shows you that the mission drivers for launches around the world tend to shift. We monitor 3 basic types of mission drivers. So those are the spacecraft that basically pay for launches to orbit. Okay? So if it's a ride share of India and there's a government satellite aboard, that government satellite's paying for the rest of the ride. I mean, yes, the other CubeSats are being paid for by those companies, but the primary payer for that launch is that government spacecraft. So you can see for the past 2 years, civil government deployment or launches have driven the launch tempo. And then commercial has risen slightly, but you can see they've all sort of traded places, commercial, military, civil government in some way or another. Now, if you count the spacecraft deployed, the 443, it tells a slightly different story. Commercial missions drove this, so over 60% of the spacecraft deployed, the 443 spacecraft deployed, were for commercial reasons. Civil government came in, slightly over 30, and then military was another 7. Of the new orbital space launch vehicles developed last year or launched, we all know about the Electron out of New Zealand. It's considered a U.S. asset because it's a U.S.-based company. The SS-520 out of Japan, basically a sounding rocket modified to launch CubeSats, small satellite payloads. And then the KZ-1A and KT-2 out of China. As you can see, they are all small satellite launch vehicles, and this would be why. Spacecraft mass. In 2017, 67% of the spacecraft that were deployed had a mass of 150 kilograms or less. Of the 443 spacecraft deployed, 61% were 10 kilograms or less. You can see Planet played a significant role in that. They garnered about 33% of the spacecraft deployed during the year. You also can see that small sats are now being put into constellations, very big ones. During its lifetime as a company, Planet has launched over 270 spacecraft. Spire is up to 60. Now, we're not talking operational for Planet. You know, they're around 170, 180, given whatever they say at the time. And you can see if it was a 3U satellite, which is about 4.5 kilograms, and you average them out, all those CubeSats combined, they would weigh under about 1,200 kilograms. So the majority of them weigh less than one digital globe Earth observation satellite or one Intelsat communication satellite, significantly less. The other thing we noticed is more companies are putting, or more organizations are putting different kinds of sensors, many different kinds of sensors on CubeSats. So a 3U CubeSat, this Lemur 2 that we see here on the desk, has all those sensors on it: optical, infrared, AIS, ADS-B, GPS radio occultation. So you've got something that augments weather. You have something that basically can take pictures of the Earth. You have something that might be able to detect fires on the planet. You have something that helps track aircraft. And you have something that helps track ships, all on one 3U CubeSat. We think this trend will continue. Questions worth examining. So this is where it gets a little interesting for us. This is a wider snapshot of the 2017 activities. You can see the United States is in the lead significantly, 30 launches, or launch attempts, I should say. with Russia behind at 19, China 18, and so on and so forth. The question we asked was, do the number of launches from a country or a company imply a diversity in the marketplace of the customers that they're serving? And it was kind of surprising to us, because this was the result. You can see India, which has one of the lowest launch rates of 2017, has the most international customers in its customer base, 21. Followed by Europe, and we would expect Europe because ESA, they are an international organization. Surprisingly, Russia actually, with its depressed launch tempo, still beat out the United States in the number of international customers in the marketplace that they served. And you can see China and Japan are a little less than those. We're not sure what it means. We think this can show an opportunity maybe for U.S. companies, that there's more they could do to garner international customers. There may be barriers, political, bureaucratic, and some examples we've seen recently. You know, the NOAA with its remote sensing requirements for stage 2 launch vehicles off of a Falcon 9. They consider that now a remote sensing system. It's up to them how to define it. They just decided to define the remote sensing system on the camera on a stage 2 as a remote sensing system. The FCC, we've been told, is a little bureaucratic in their own way, and we're seeing this sort of tiff play out with Swarm Technologies and their space bees. And it could be pricing, it could be just the pace. They say they've upped it, but we've heard that they can take as much as 120 days to get a license to someone. So maybe that's not fast enough for the entrepreneurial mindset that we're seeing come forth today. It also could be pricing. I mean, India is known for having low pricing on space launch vehicles. We have that data. And it also could just be things like ITAR. Maybe that's impacting some of our customers here. We don't know. But we think this is a trend worth examining, and we'll keep looking at it, see if we can gather more information on it. The other question we asked is, well, so does a company with greater space launch vehicle inventory, does that imply that they have greater access or greater diversity in their customer launch base? And the answer to that seems to be, at least in the United States, no. You can see the traditional companies like Orbital ATK and ULA, they rely primarily on U.S. customers for their launches, primarily military and civil government. SpaceX is interesting because they have the one launch vehicle, the Falcon 9, and you can see the diversity is almost, as far as the international customers, almost equals the number of American customers. Again, we're not sure if this is a trend, if SpaceX is the only outlier, but we're going to look at this throughout the years to see what's going on with this. But we figure it's worth pointing out. And there we have it. I hope I've made it short enough for you all. We've just gone over the number of launches, the types of launches that have, the types of missions that are guiding those launches, and the differences between the space launch vehicles and the spacecraft that are deployed. And you see there are differences between what missions drive launches and what missions drive the spacecraft numbers. We've also talked about, is there diversity in a market? It depends on which country, apparently, and it doesn't necessarily mean that the most prolific launch country is the one that has the most diverse customer base. Also the same with inventory. If you have greater launch inventory, SLV inventory for launching customers, does that mean that more customers are coming to you? And right now we're saying no, that's not the case. And that's really all I have. You can find our information, all our data that we have, basically at thespacereport.org. If you want to come chat with me or Becky, we will be ready to answer your questions, but I figure we should probably go ahead and get you guys going just so that, yeah, oh, well. All right. If anyone has questions, I guess I went a little quicker than I normally do. So go ahead. Yes, sir.
So one question I had was looking at price sensitivity
Mm-hmm.
versus customer diversity. So basically kilograms or dollars per kilogram versus price versus number of customers you might have. Did you look at that and see?
So we haven't really looked at that yet. We want to. So the graphs that you see, we came up with within about a month ago because we're trying to find something that's interesting. But it's something that we think is worthwhile exploring, and we will look at that. But just keep in mind, like for India, yeah, 21 customers, but probably the majority of them are for small sats, right? So India, one space launch alone last year was responsible for basically a quarter of the spacecraft deployed. So that probably helps skew their numbers somewhat with something like that. Any other questions? Got one over here.
Craig Gant. When you showed the example of the 3U satellite and how all of the different sensors were on it, I was wondering if you guys have done any research to determine if organizations rather develop their own CubeSat technology or if they're using off-the-shelf technology that other companies are developing.
So the answer is it depends on the company. Planet is pretty notorious for building their own 3U CubeSats. So they are primarily optical CubeSats, Earth observation satellites. Spire, on the other hand, if I remember right, uses Clyde, which is in the UK, to build their satellites. And I don't know necessarily the breakdown of who builds the sensors, but they are actually relying on a CubeSat builder to build their spacecraft. I hope that answers that question. Any other questions? Okay, well, I think that is it. Thank you all for coming, and I hope you all have a great time listening to the other excellent folks out there. Thank you.
Can you guys hear me? Okay, great. I just wanted to give you guys a quick update and guide you to the next session. So we will start at 9:05 in Hall C, which is back here on, I guess, stage right. We will have aircraft safety in a space world and mission assurance. And then in Hall F, on the other side, we will have small satellites. So we do have a little bit of a break. Again, we'll start at 9:05, which is in about 10 minutes. And then after those two sessions, we'll group back here at 10:15 for Claire Jolly's featured speech. So there will be a break again after both of those sessions.